Hey, this is my third year at this event, and it's fantastic to be invited back. Thank you, Harry and Rahmat, for inviting me back, it's always a pleasure. But what I love is every time I come, you guys look even better. You look younger and more excited about the future. I do need to make a disclaimer that even though I've been coming regularly, there's no commercial relationship with CTI. I do this because I share the passion that they have for educating, inspiring and empowering all of you and your businesses to drive the Indonesian economy forward. So we're an independent, objective source of information to help you drive technology-related decisions, whether that's business, impact of technology, strategy, innovation, managing risk, or technology itself. So we do that because technology-related change will never be as slow as it is today. This is my third year here. 2 years ago, we talked about the digital revolution. Last year, we talked about machine learning and touching on related AI. This year, we're talking about blockchain. I couldn't have predicted 2 years ago that the topic today would be blockchain. We were talking about blockchain, there were some early adopters and interest, but I didn't know that that would be the topic, in 2 years' time. Now, thankfully, the analysts in Gartner are smarter than me. They make the predictions and analyse the markets and so forth. So they probably did know, but I didn't. I wasn't smart enough to do that. So let's think about blockchain. Is blockchain the light at the end of the tunnel? Your hope for the future? The answer to all your prayers? Or is it an out-of-control train speeding towards you? Now, it can be both. The answer to that really is up to you in terms of how you take that forward. Let me step back a little bit from blockchain just to give you a little bit of a context of the way we see technology progressing. We've been through the era of e-commerce, electronic transactions on the internet. We heard a little reference to that earlier, exchanging documents, buying and selling. Now we're in this era of D-business, digital business. And one of the key differences is we've gone from just the virtual world and we're connecting the physical world, the so-called Internet of Things. We're connecting physical devices, sensors, all sorts of machines, collecting data, giving us a more complete picture of what's going on, and blending the boundary between the physical world and the virtual or the online world. So we're right in the middle of this digital business era. But we're already seeing some early signs of the next era, which we're talking about as the programmable economy. Not just having things that are connected, but having algorithms, having AI, having machines and software that can start to make their own decisions about how to manage assets or how to manage transactions. And blockchain is one of the foundations for that. We're not there yet, but we're seeing some of the early signs of that next stage. So back to blockchain. At the end of last year, blockchain was the #1 search item on Gartner's website. Now, I didn't check what it was, whether it was still #1 last month, but it's certainly up in the top few. #1. Why all the interest? What is blockchain? You heard a little bit about that. When I was younger, I used to work on cars, and I used to use a chain block as a type of winch to lift the engine out of the car. If you're older like me and you played with cars, you probably know what I'm talking about. Well, blockchain's not a chain block. From the props here, you might think that blockchain is some new Lego product where the plastic blocks can be electronically linked up into a chain. Well, sorry, but we're not launching that today. So what is blockchain? You already heard about that earlier. Blockchain is basically a distributed ledger. So you will sometimes hear reference to distributed ledger technology, or DLT. That's basically the same as blockchain. It's a more generic term. So what is a distributed ledger? I'm a simple guy. I'm a recycled civil engineer. I accidentally became a CIO, and then one day I woke up working for Gartner. I'm not a technology geek kind of guy. In simple terms, my dad was an accountant. He knew about ledgers. Ledgers record transactions. So in blockchain, the block is basically an electronic ledger that records a series of transactions. The chain then is another block of transactions gets added to that in sequence. So over time, you build up a history of transactions. Now, the really cool thing with blockchain that makes it special is the distributed part. So that ledger isn't just on a centralized server, but it's distributed across the network of users within the system. Now, that creates really powerful security. In a centralized system, if I can hack into your central server, I can steal data or corrupt the transactions. When those transactions are copied and replicated across a network of computers, 50, 100, 1,000, a million computers, I can't change that record unless I can simultaneously hack into all of those computers at the same time. That's what makes blockchain really interesting from a security and a trust point of view. So that's the simple version of it. Now, you can also think about extending the basic concept and starting to put some algorithms embedded in with the blockchain. And that's where we get this programmable sort of behavior, or what people call smart contracts. There was a reference earlier to the hype. If you know anything about Gartner, you've heard of the hype cycle. The hype cycle helps you understand the maturity of technology. So here we have a trigger. Somebody invents something in a lab, comes up with a crazy idea. Then they start to deploy it. There's some early pilots. As people start to hear about it, they get overexcited. That's what we call the hype. So the expectations escalate too quickly, but the technology underneath is not yet mature. So that's what we call the peak of inflated expectations. As we go on, people then realize, hey, this isn't quite as good, doesn't quite do everything that people promised, and they get disillusioned, the trough of disillusionment. But as the technology continues to develop, as people deploy it, as people learn how to use it, how to manage it, how to make it secure, it becomes more productive and it comes up to this plateau. As you can see, for a number of industries are very early in that stage. The most mature is banking and financial services, but that's right at the top of the hype cycle. I don't have it on here because this was a sort of industry slide, but Bitcoin is in the trough. It's a little bit ahead, it's been around a bit longer, but it's right in the trough at the moment. That's why there's a lot of controversy around it. Government is not far behind financial services. Government are early adopters compared to many other industries. But you can see a whole range of industries: supply chain, utilities, healthcare, customer service. Every industry can potentially benefit from using blockchain. But be aware of the hype. This is a view from the Gartner team around some projections out to 2030. And the red line talks about the level of investment in blockchain. So you can see the early stage really mirrors the hype cycle. People get overexcited, everyone says, hey, we better do a blockchain project or we'll get left behind. Right? But they're not sure what problem they're trying to solve. And so you see that level of investment will rapidly rise over the next couple of years. Then it will drop off as people start to get frustrated. Right? They start to get into that disillusionment. But then by about 2023, we'll start to see that picking up again as people work out how to get value from it. The blue bars are really the underlying value that people will get, the business value from leveraging blockchain to solve business problems, create new markets, new businesses. So that will steadily grow from a very low base, and it will accelerate by the time we hit into the mid-20s. That's just a projection sort of to keep in mind. So be aware, we're in that early stage of over-exuberance. It doesn't mean ignore it, but be careful.